Hello and what is up guys, Rai here and welcome to a video on the channel. Today we are going to be playing some automation and BeamNG Drive. So what are we going to be doing today? Well, we are going to be taking a look at one of the most fascinating eras in automotive history. We are taking a look at the rise of the muscle cars. So if you don't know what a muscle car is, in the early mid-60s, depending on what you consider being the first muscle car, some American auto manufacturers decided to keep throwing bigger engines into their full-sized sedan coupe cars and making them more powerful than ever before. And this kept going until the early 70s when fuel emission regulations and the price of fuel went up so much so that it wasn't really meant to be anymore. So we are going to relive that awesome piece of automotive history by recreating my original 1960s-ish muscle car. It's going to be loosely based off of a first generation Pontiac GTO, which is one of the earliest muscle cars. You can see here I have a ton of cars made in this game. I have been playing automation for the longest time, never made a video on it, but I decided to make one today. So this is a little bit more impromptu, haven't really spent much time preparing what I was going to do beforehand here. So we are going to be creating the car in automation, going through most of the process. I will design the car. I love designing the cars. I will go through that in like a time-lapse type of thing. Then we will go ahead and test the car in BeamNG Drive. So we are going to first off start by setting the year down to 65 is probably a good year. 65, yes, we get some good bodies here. So now we have two choices. Now, this is a little bit more 70s looking kind of a body. I was thinking a big square with a giant engine, so probably thinking the biggest honking, biggest body they have possible, 3.2, I think this is meters wheelbase. It sounds pretty good. It's a coupe because what else do you want really? Now when we're starting off here, of course all car body panels were steel at the time, and most are today, or plastic or whatever. Not really, or aluminum I guess, but steel was definitely the metal of choice in the 1960s. Now this is where we have a couple options. We can do a ladder chassis, which is like body on frame. So what that means is the car's body and the frame are not one piece. But in the 60s, I'm not sure if the GTO is body. I'm pretty sure it was unibody. I know in the 70s that's when lots of American companies switched to lots of unibody cars. We're gonna do monocoque, which is unibody. Everything's gonna be one piece here. Chassis material just steel. This is gonna be a cheap car with a ton of horsepower. So it's gonna be terrible on gas. I mean, not that fast overall, just have tons of power, because this is the 1960s here. There's cars weren't that fast. Like 6 seconds 0 to 60 was quick, and a 5 was very fast. 5 was scary. So if we can get, aiming for 6 seconds-ish, even for around 400-ish horsepower, etc. Nothing but, front-mounted engine, longitudinal rear-wheel drive, of course. So we'll do McPherson Strut Devil Wishbone is a little too advanced for the 60s, I'd say, for this cheap car. Coil is a little too cheap. This is a bit of a it's the the higher end vehicle. It's like a luxury barge with a ton of power. So we will do McPherson struts in the front, and yeah, semi-trailing armors in the rear. So nothing too crazy, but still better than most cars in the 70s and 60s. Engine, this is probably the most important part of this car here. This is the heart and soul of our vehicle. And we're going to do nothing but a 60-degree V8 all cast iron push rod, which it loads here, cast iron. And so we have two options. We have stroke and we have bore. So the stroke determines, up, down. Bore is, left and right. So bore is how big the cylinder, how big the pistons are. And the stroke is, how long they are, basically. So what this means is essentially more stroke. We are going to have a big honk and heavy engine, but it's going to have a lot of power. It's going to have a lot of torque, which is what we kind of want here. We want lots of torque. Otherwise, if we go bore here and have a very short stroke, then we can have an engine that revs really high, and it can make high power at the high RPMs, which of course we don't want that. We just want maximum bore. And from what I was reading, 6.6 liters was around the first generation GTO's engine. I think it was a 400 cubic inch, which I use cubic centimeters because that's what everyone knows nowadays. No one really knows a 400 cubic inch or a 389 or whatever. So we're going to do 6.6 liters even because I like round numbers, of course. keep going on here to the next page. Cast iron everything because this is still pretty cheap. We might go forge or something later on. This is the high performance top of line, but again, you know, it's still kind of budget oriented. You know, this is the 60s here. Cam profile, we'll play this after. Compression we'll leave at 8.5 to start. This is the 60s. I think 9 was probably very high in the mid 60s. Higher than most for sure. 8.5 is probably around where most are. I have a classic card. My car is at 8.8. So fuel system, we can do injection, which was not unheard of by some performance vehicles, but we are going to do carburation because that's the 1960s for you. Two choices: DCOE, which is like a race carburetor setup, or a 4-barrel carb system. So we could have DCOE. Let's do this for a second here. So basically, it's race carburetors. You know, individual throttle body, yeah, for every cylinder, right? That's what that is. Or 4-barrel carb system. One big honk of carburetor. We can have two of them. Probably an 8-pack. I think an 8-pack or a 6-pack. 6-pack's pretty cool. And so that's what you call 3 2-barrel carbs, because 2 barrels per carburetor, and this 3 is a 6-pack. And this would be an 8-pack. Have that, or you could have, like, you know, 9.5 is pretty. You can see here now we're getting into the, you know, the higher 9 compression ratio, and there is some knocking, which is not good. So that's lowering our power a lot. That's why it's going down quite a bit now. We probably want to do what, 330 sounds pretty good. We're getting there. 340, 345, and 405 torque. Nice even numbers for now. We'll take a look at this for now. We'll go back to this. And what we'll do is just start the engine here just to give it a bit of a rev. Now, it might be a bit loud. Just a warning, guys. It is pretty loud. I'm gonna actually just hold down a bit, actually. There we go. That sounds pretty good. 345 horses, you know, I think we'll start at. We can make like a race sort of spec of this maybe after this or something like that. We'll take a look after. 1965 coupe body, we have a choice here of a convertible coupe, a wagon, or a sedan. You can see we can play around with sort of the styling here and there a bit. We're gonna do this all after. I'm gonna do this at the end here. It will affect some dynamics, you know, the car at the end there, but that's okay. We will go to the drivetrain next. We'll go back to the designing at the end there, yeah. So rear-wheel drive, longitudinally mounted, manual, because what else is a performance car, and a 4-speed is pretty common for performance cars in the 60s. 5 speeds, not really for anything American. I don't think there's really anything much American 5 speeds. We'll keep the spacing pretty high, so, you know, nice. Short gears. Yeah, offline acceleration, short gears, good. Automatic locking, we want a locking differential, you know, we're gonna need, there's a lot of power going through here. Wheels, cross-ply and radial. We're not gonna do cross-ply because it's pretty terrible. You can see here, limits you on everything. Radial's just better, and it's what most cars, I'd say, is 65. I'd say some cars have the 60s, not all. Lots of American cars. And what tire size I think would be appropriate? Probably maybe 235s is what the biggest they had. This is millimeters in width and diameter. 195s in the rear or the front, and 235 in the rear. My car that I have is a 1970 car. It's got 185s in the front and rear. It's not a muscle car by any means. It's got literally less than a third of the horsepower and less than half the torque. So we're to the sports compound. 15 inches pretty big. 15 inches probably the biggest they would have had. Big honk of tires. Steel rims because magnesium would be too expensive. And we're gonna offset the rear just a bit so it looks a bit better. Better stance. You know, I don't like the tires wider, but I'll offset them. Disc brakes, of course, front. And disc rear because, you know, it's a performance vehicle. 2 pistons, nah, 1 piston. 12-inch discs and 10 inches. Sounds a little large, but, you know, not impossible for the time. Aerodynamics, none. No, we don't need that. Seats, Yeah, we'll do a 5-seater. Oh, actually, we'll do a 6-seater. This is a big hunk, and this is a muscle car. Actually, do I like buckets in the front? I love buckets, so it'd be brakes, nice even numbers because that's what I like. They are barely holding on there. That's okay though. So this is the basic outline of our car here, and I'm just gonna save it before we do anything. Now what we're gonna do is going to design the car, then we are going to name the car. It'll probably be something, you know, muscle car related and whatnot, just because that's how I feel. But we are going to design the car nonetheless. That's my favorite part of the car, actually, is designing it. So just, you know, stay tuned for the timeline, guys. We'll be back in just a minute or so. Alright guys, we are back in BeamNG Drive now, ready to go to take a look. And before we start off the actual drag race, we're going to see how the car actually looks in the game. I think it actually looks better in the game than it does in automation. The back end, it's growing on me. I feel like it's pretty complete. Actually, the C's are pretty. The C and the G you can't really read. That's okay. It is growing on me. So first off the bat here, 14.5-ish seconds. Pretty bad. We're going to retry again. And that was without any locking differential. We're going to lock the rear diff now. Give it a little more gas. Definitely wants to kick out from you. Oh. And she's done. Now we're going to test out burnouts. Can this thing just do burnouts? I don't think so. Oh. Huh. Front tires could be a bit wider, but I think on bus size it handles okay. It's definitely kind of yacht-like. Definitely wafty. Yeah, it definitely screams 1960s. The looks scream almost 1950s from the back end, but that's okay. Now, what we're gonna do is just see top speed achieved in the in just over the quarter mile here, at the end of this little drag strip. It's about 160 through the quarter mile, we hit 200 maybe? Nah, it's not gonna happen. 195? Yeah, 196. Honestly, it's not terrible. Well, guys, there you have it. So the Grand Coupe 400, definitely definitely a decent car. Kind of glitching out for me is the headlights have turned to go student. Okay, kind of weird, but sure, it works. Not the fanciest car, but I think it looks pretty decent and it goes pretty well too. You know, let me know down below, guys, what kind of cars you want to see next. I'm definitely gonna do, you know, some more of these videos in the future. New cars and old cars, of course. I actually prefer new cars. This is kind of out of my comfort zone doing an old style car, even though I have an old car. You know, it is based loose stuff GTO, loosely. There's definitely, you know, other car designs in there. So actually, the grill should have been a little bigger, I think. But yeah, not bad. Let me know what you think, guys, in the comments down below. If you're interested in this kind of stuff, you know, a like is always appreciated. So anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. And as always, I'll see you next time.